Good evening. The Grauer School was founded, for those of you who are new here, we were founded in 1991 to give teens real voices, real choices, and the mentors that they really trust. We eventually started our Great Conversation series so we could bring great educational issues and thought leaders to our community and region. We're especially honored with tonight's Great Conversation because it's with a person who has been such a dear friend of our family and school, Dr. Edith Eger. You know, we were honored to name an emeritus faculty member of Edie at the Grauer School at a ceremony here in this room some years ago because of Edie's many appearances here and because she's been giving teens a voice since well before 1991. So welcome here, Edie. It's really wonderful to see you as always. We thought we'd host a little book signing. Edie, what have you done? As a child, Edie was one of 70 out of 15,000 inhabitants of her hometown in Hungary to survive the Great War. In her book, The Choice, you'll learn how an orphaned Hungarian Jew with a broken back and PTSD winds up with a PhD, various prestigious university positions, becomes a student of both Carl Rogers and Viktor Frankl, and at least as important, you'll learn how you can overcome even overwhelming odds to have a happy and purposeful life. Edie has overcome an ordeal so incomprehensible, so shocking, so surrealistic, that we can only commit to a permanent effort to try and understand it. Her book will be vital for generations to come. The Choice is a gift to humanity. Edie has an almost unbelievable gift of making everyone she knows, even those she counsels, feel as though they're in her family. Edie and I share Hungarian roots. She was one of the last people to visit my own mother when she was struggling with independent living in Austin, Texas. I've never seen any bounds to Edie's compassion. She also has a gift in writing and storytelling. The Choice would be a must-read because of who Edie is and what she went through as the Anne Frank who lived, but add to that the compelling stories of astonishing things she has done as a therapist while engaged with clients reclaiming their lives. By the first 100 pages, you will want this book to be a movie. And by the time you're finished, you'll want it to be at least 3 movies. You want it to be at least 3 movies. So we congratulate Edie on this brilliant, long-due, mind-blowing, and powerfully needed book. Already translated into several languages. Already a New York Times bestseller. Who writes their first major book at 90 years old and has it turned into a bestseller? Well, how's that for an empowering role model? Edie, once again, welcome back to the Grauer School. I want to welcome everyone here tonight to the Grauer School, a place of the deepest student engagement. And thank to each of you for attending another great conversation here. Thank you also to the talented and loving Grauer staff members who put this event together. We do not have a long evening plan. We'll start the conversation out with a couple questions or conversation between me and Edie, and then we'll open up the floor to just maybe about 3 questions or so. And then after the Q&A, we can have some book signing going on, and hope the event to last around an hour. So I hope you have a beautiful evening. And Edie, shall I start with a question, or should you start with a comment?
Thank you. I hope this is working, and it does. So.
Sounds good.
Okay, I was so happy to be here. I remember when we met the first time, you were really so enthusiastic about doing something differently so the children would look forward to come to school, something that they really wanted to see how they can like school, and you certainly have done that. I know your students and I know your teachers, and I can't wait to get here in the morning and hope that tonight is It's not September anymore, but we can talk about new beginnings. And I think you have to be old to be young, because being 90, I feel much younger than now that when I met. I give up my need for approval of everyone. I give up my need to please everyone. And so think about that. I think young, and I live in a present. And it's wonderful for you to show up tonight. I hope that we can have a very meaningful evening. I can tell you that being 90 is wonderful, just wonderful. Life is full of surprises. When I came to America penniless and I didn't speak a word of English, I really didn't realize that this is going to happen. And it can. So you have questions, right? I like to just speak without rehearsing anything.
Yeah,
or just
I do have one question. One question I've been thinking a lot about, and this is kind of personal for me, that the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh says,
Yeah.
I smile even to my suffering. And you write, to heal, we embrace the dark. And you make an amazing promise that a man who has nothing left in this world may still know bliss. And Edie, there's so much suffering. And I'm wondering about smiling and the blissful embrace, and if this is something that really always makes sense. In the choice, the one sentence you write is, we can choose what horror teaches us, to become bigger in our grief and fear, or to hold on to the childlike part of us, the lively and curious part, the part that is innocent. Beautiful, beautiful writing. But my question is this, is there ever a time to give up on optimism, on our innocent side, or on the childlike part of ourselves?
There is a difference between being childish and being childlike. I think it's good to give up the childish part, because the vocabulary of a child is, I want, I need, I gotta have, you're not gonna make me, and I'm not gonna. You know who speaks like that? A 2-year-old. So there is a difference between childish and childlike parties. That part of me that even Jesus said only children can go to heaven. I think the childlike part is what kept me alive, that I was able to somehow talk to myself in a way that I never ever gave up hope. And I think every morning I would say to myself, if I survive today, then tomorrow I'll be free. So I think people who are childlike are curious. And that curious part of me that kept me alive. And at the age of 90, I'm still curious. I don't have any answers, I have a lot of questions, but I'm hoping to be a good role model to our children, because they are the future. And children don't do what we say, they do what they see. So I love to talk to parents, especially the father, who is really showing the children how he is adoring their mother. Because love is not what you feel, it's what you do. That you commit yourself to someone else's welfare. Because all we had was each other in Auschwitz, and all we have is each other now. So there is hope in hopelessness, and everything in life is an opportunity, the way I see it. Not recovering, but discovering. And Auschwitz was the place where everything was taken away from us. And the question comes up, how do you find from within when nothing comes from the without? Because the more you wait for someone else to make you happy, you're never going to be happy. Happiness comes from the outside, love and joy comes from the inside. So I think looking for answers from the outside, that kind of dependency can breed depression.
Thank you. All right, I've got another very hard question for you. That was beautiful, thank you. In the choice, you're revealing some intensely personal things.
The more choices you have, the less you feel like a victim.
Yeah.
I was victimized, I'm not a victim. That's what was done to me, it's not who I am. And I have a story, but I'm not my story. I can change from moment to moment, hour by hour, day by day. I like change because it's synonymous with growth.
So we don't want to be too attached to our stories, but
We don't want to revolve, we want to evolve. I like the metamorphosis, I like the butterfly.
Yeah. Are there any stories that you will never tell? And are there, I mean, you reveal so much in the choice, and that I wonder if all of us have dark corners and shadows that we really shouldn't tell. Or is it just best to get everything out there at some point with the right person?
That's a very remarkable question. But if I would live my life today trying to figure out what I could or should, then I would miss the present. So I think it's a very good question.
And your answer is who knows?
Yes,
I'm asking because the choice was so revelatory,
yeah.
and so much disclosure in it. And I think we all
Well,
appreciate
you know, life is difficult. If you look up your birth certificate, it doesn't say that there is a guarantee. There's one thing I can tell you in a school, because I'm a former school teacher, and I still have a blackboard in my office. I think that you cannot teach anyone unless they have the desire to learn. And I think good teachers do that. They become a kind of a mystery, and the kids never know what she or he is going to come up with today. You see, so you make a difference as you come in, and that's what I did with my students. I told them what has to happen in this class to make an A. And the only excuse is death, yours.
And taxes.
So, but I made myself very interesting and very interested. So I don't treat the students as they are, I treat them as if they were what I would like them to become, and then they rise to the occasion.
Yes, and I know your students.
You don't treat them as they are, but you treat them the way you want them to be, and believe me, they rise to the occasion.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That actually leads me to my third question. But before I get to it, I just want to ask you something really quick, and that is that we made you an emeritus faculty member years ago, even though you weren't on our full-time faculty. So I just want to seal that deal by making sure, Edith, is it okay if I always call you my teacher?
Oh, honey, you can call me your grandma. You see, I am not a strong woman. I am a woman of strength. And I think that strength comes from the inside. And at 90, I can also say that it's not only being a strong woman, but also being wise. Not just smart, but wise. And I can ask you to ask yourself before you say anything, is it kind? And if it's not, don't say it. I am dreaming of a kinder world. I want us to empower each other with our differences. I like to see how you can be you and I can be I, and together we're going to be much stronger. So I'm very much wanting to unite rather than the us and them mentality and separate. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Can I just ask one more thing about teaching and education? What I want to know is, and this is important to me because we're here as, this is a school.
How many of you are teachers here? Oh, there you go.
That's pretty good showing. So what I want to know is, on page 166 of the book, and elsewhere, you describe what drove you out of the teaching profession, even after being named Teacher of the Year. And you know, this is the sentence you wrote: "The sense of purpose I felt at the beginning of my profession began to be eroded by the bureaucracy of schools, the huge class sizes and caseloads, the inability to work effectively with individual students." Edie, it's essential that teachers facing all these conditions will stay in this work. We need great teachers, but we need to stay authentic. If everyone takes a moral stance against bigness and impersonalization, either the schools will change or else there'll be very few teachers entering the profession. So thinking back to your teaching days when you were facing what so many big school teachers are facing, do you have words for those teachers who are in big systems where they're out of control, where they might feel like victims? Do you have words for the students who feel like they have no voice? Do you have thoughts about creating the healing schools we need?
Yeah, well, healing is a very different thing from curing, especially when I work with cancer patients. I tell them, if you survive, you're never going to be the same, you're going to be better. But there is a difference between a job and your life's work. Teaching is not a job when you want to make the most amount of money with the least amount of work. It is your ministry. It is your life's work. I think that you deserve, all your teachers, a standing ovation, because every day you come in and you create the future here. And you get in touch also with your feelings that some children are easier to love, but the most obnoxious one is going to be your best teacher. So what you don't like in someone, it's time to look at that in you. So I respect the teachers. I am a teacher myself, but I like to call myself a guide. I like the guide concept that I was not really free until I started to work with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had two paraplegics coming from Vietnam with the same symptomatology, the same diagnosis, but two entirely different responses. One of them would curse God and country and why me, and conversely the other one said to me, "Hey doc, it's very interesting that God gave me a second chance in life. And I can see the children's eyes much closer. And I'm sitting there with a white coat that says Dr. Eger, Department of Psychiatry, and I felt like the biggest imposter. Because I never told anyone I was in Auschwitz. I had a 16-year-old girl in me that I ran away from, that I just wanted to be a Yankee Doodle dandy like you, and I just wanted to speak English without an accent. And those two paraplegic made a whole difference in my life, because then I decided to go back to Auschwitz. And that's the work, I think, that I do now, how to hold your precious hand and go back to that lion's den and look at the lion in the face and reclaim the innocence and assign the shame and guilt to the perpetrator, and then begin to forgive myself that I survived. So instead of running away or fighting fear, to face it. And those two paraplegics were my best teachers. I wish I could see them now and let them know that they gave me the permission to give birth to the me. that I was meant to be free. However, my sister Magda, who was with me in Auschwitz, I call her up and say, Magda, we lost our family and I never went to a funeral. I want you to come so we can go back to Auschwitz, which is the biggest cemetery, and honor our parents. And she says to me, you're an idiot. We went through the same experience, two entirely different responses. So that's why, you cannot make someone want to do anything unless they're ready. And I think the Grauer School practices that with students who truly become the future leaders and presidents of the United States.
We're more concerned with having them be children right now. I think that's the best path to being future leaders.
Yes,
A little bit of time for playfulness and joy and that childlike self that you're talking about.
The childlike part.
And I think that some of the schools are taking that away. So we're going to make sure that stays.
And I think the parents want to also acknowledge that there is no forgiveness without rage. It's not good to cover garlic with chocolate. It doesn't taste good. It's not an overnight process, but I think forgiveness gives you the spiritual freedom that revenge will never do.
Beautiful. You give us all kinds of permission.
All right.
We have time for a few questions from the floor as well. Is that okay, Edie?
Of course.
What do we got? Ryan?
Hi, so my name's Ryan.
Come here, Pressure.
Hang on to that and we can give it if anybody else wants to ask a question.
Okay, cool. Hi, so my name's Ryan. I am a junior at the Grauer School. And on behalf of the student body, we just wanted to present you with these flowers as a thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
So you can hold them or put them on the floor or wherever you want them.
Thank you. It's wonderful to think about us, that what we plant, that's what's going to grow. Yeah? If I plant petunias, I'm not going to get roses, and I think if you can plant a seed after tonight, and then see how you water it, so you would bloom no matter what age you are, because the best thing you can do to your children is prepare them to enter the world without you, that they can become good parents to themselves. Sometimes we parents discipline too much, way too much, and we don't have to do that ad nauseum. Children don't do what we say, they do what they see. So find that little girl and that little boy in you, and that little boy or little girl will probably tell you, I want to have a loving parent, and you say, I'm showing up for you. So when you see all the chocolate and when you see all the booze, and then you ask yourself, is this really good for me? Is it going to give me a few minutes of pleasure? Or you see that you constantly engaging in your self-dialogue as to how you can be a good parent to you. And that's what I'm doing because I have a bad back. But I can also tell you that when I was liberated, and I was in a hospital and they put me in a cast, and I had 5 kinds of typhoid fever, my lung was filled with water. I got up in the morning, I didn't say what, I said what for. I had no meaning in my life. I realized my parents are not coming back, and I was very suicidal. And I think God has told me that if I die, I probably will be just a coward, but if I live, I'm going to be for something. And so I am in a healing arts profession, you see. And so I hope that maybe tonight you can also make a decision as to what are you willing to carry with you. Because when you are angry, you're probably frustrated, you probably have pain, and you probably have a lot of fear. So maybe tonight I can be your little guide and see what you can do every day that you can say at a boy or at a girl, that you give yourself a lot of yeses. Yes, I am, and yes, I can, and yes, I will, rather than I don't want that, and I don't want that, the positive. And I think that's the way God built us, so we could live a very, very meaningful life. And that's how I got in touch with Viktor Frankl, because I kept my secret until somebody handed me the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And so my book is the female voice of Viktor Frankl.
Another brilliant book. Ryan, did you
I
have
also
anything?
have a question for you. How has your experience and how has your life as a whole affected your worldview today?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How has your life affected your worldview?
My
today?
worldview? I think there is a gift in everything. I'm always looking for a gift in everything. That you always find what you look for. And I'm looking for hope, and I want to be more realistic rather than idealistic. Because when an idealist comes and they don't find exactly what they're looking for, I've seen them being very sarcastic, very cynical. Hungarians are very cynical. And I like philosophical humor. And my worldview is that while I am here, I am going to do everything in my power to see to it that your children and grandchildren, and I have 3 great-grandsons, will never experience what I did. So when I'm going to be in my deathbed, I'm going to be so satisfied that I was here at the Grauer School and that I celebrated my 90th birthday and turned life into a constant celebration. But to be a realist rather than idealist. Don't confuse romanticism with realism. Yeah, that was good.
Does anyone else have a question? I'm coming.
You said that you wanted to go back to where.
Turn that up, we can't hear that.
You said you wanted to go
Comment.
back.
You tell me the question and you come here because I'm not so good at hearing everything the way it's meant. Come on, honey, please come. You're the future. How old are you? 14. Wow. Why don't you make a card and put your name and then put under it President? And then act as if you were. Practice makes it perfect. What do you practice? Yes?
You said that you wanted to go back to where you had your parents died.
Here, honey, take this.
Use your mic.
You said you wanted to go back to where your parents died, and your sister said that was crazy.
I told my sister to come with me to honor my parents, yes.
Did you ever honor them, and how?
Yes, I did go back.
How is the feeling, and what?
That's a brilliant question. That is
Thank you.
so brilliant. So brilliant. When I went back to Auschwitz, I was so scared because I saw the barrack. It may have not been the one where I was dancing for Dr. Mengele, the man who was responsible for my parents' death. I never could do anything in a therapist's room. I had to go back to that lion's den and look at that lion in the face. It was one of the most positive things I have done in my life for me. But as you can see, going through the same experience, you have different responses. It doesn't mean that I'm right and my sister is wrong. I'm right, of course I'm right, but I'm only right for me. I cannot be right for anyone else. But that was a brilliant question, and this is really so important. But you see, when I was coming out, I saw a man in a uniform, and for a moment I thought I was back with a Nazi. And the realization that I had a blue American passport in my pocket, I never could have experienced that anywhere else except going back to that place. It was a Polish somebody there who was there. So I am hoping that I can be a witness to let people know what can happen when good people do bad things. If I would have lived in Vienna, if I would have been born in Germany, and Uncle Hitler would tell me that today Germany and tomorrow the whole world, children are very impressionable. I wonder if I would have been a very enthusiastic member of the Hitler Youth. So sometimes we try to figure too much, you see, and just live life for the fullest that we can. All the diets and none of that is going to do you some good unless you become a good parent to you. So see if that you can, the body and the mind is very important, but the third dimension is the spiritual dimension. Because I know when I fly, I know that the pilot goes back and forth, and then I see the blue sky. The blue sky's been there all along. See how you can let go of some of your unrealistic expectations, some of your chronic anger, because nothing blocks intimacy more than low-level chronic anger. So there is a lot that may be going on tonight in your mind, and I hope that I can be the midwife to you, the spiritual midwife, that you give birth to the you that was really meant to be. Because God doesn't make junk, and I love that. You're beautiful just the way you are, and if you leave this room, no one can ever replace you. This is the best school. This is the best school when the children's one-of-a-kindness, uniqueness is being celebrated every day in every class. So congratulations to you.
Thank you for telling us about the blue sky. And that's something that we can spend the whole rest of the year talking about.
The blue sky's been there all along. Yeah. Anything else? More questions?
More questions?
I'm just ready to begin.
It's just getting warmed up.
I have a lot to say. Do you know the name Maya Angelou? Maya Angelou was raped when she was 7 years old. And she says her rapist died a couple of days later, and she thought that she caused his death. And she said, for 7 years, I went to the black library and I read everything. And then I went to the white library and read everything for 7 years, and when I opened my mouth, I had a lot to say. I'm very much identifying with that too, that I never thought I could catch up with you, that I learned more and studied more, and professor said read 1 book, I read 10 books, and when I opened my mouth, I have a lot to say. Thank you. Hi, beautiful. You are a jolly girl. This woman is brilliant because she takes care of your body and the mind and the soul, and she teaches elderly people how to exercise sitting down. Come here, Jolly.
I'm privileged to know this absolutely amazing woman for many years. She has touched my life beyond belief. Congratulations on the completion of your book.
Thank you.
I have a question. I could ask you questions all day and all night. But I have a question about how to best deal with the unknown of the future. There's sometimes there are periods in our lives, and in mine in particular, my daughter's, where we don't know. We just have to live with the questions that are unanswered. You've been through that many times, of course. What can you say that will touch all of us and help us to be peaceful with that?
You know, all your thinking causes your feelings. So I would say think about your thinking and pay attention what you're paying attention to, because any behavior you pay attention to, you reinforce that behavior. Parents need to learn that. I told you 100 times, you become a broken record. And what I like to also say to you, that I go dancing once a week, and that is my dancing partner, and his name is Gene Cook, and he picks me up every Sunday, and we do the swing dance. Dancing works for everything. And my children call that supermarket music, but that's okay. That's okay with me. I love the big band, and it's my kind of music. So anyway, anything you pay attention to, you have to be very careful. That you always wait until your child does something that you would like, and then you reinforce that behavior. Thank you for being kind, or thank you for being considerate and so on, rather than why don't you do this or why don't you do that. So I ask you not to ask questions like how are you, and don't say why don't you do this or why don't you do that. Because any time what you do when you give advice, you tell that other person that I'm smart and you're stupid and I know what's good for you. So I think love is a four-letter word. T-I-M-E, time. Take your time and just say, I wondered about that myself. It's a very good question. You know, you asked me a very good question. And that's what it is, that you don't have to have an answer. Why is a past-oriented word? Why is a problem-oriented? Why did you do that, or why don't you do that? I think the parents give too much advice and we're not very good listeners. I highly recommend just to say, tell me more. I would like to hear more about it. Because when I was 14, I had a very different situation than you do. And that's why we don't have answers, but we're there to keep the feelings company. Just keep the feeling, any feeling. You can't heal what you don't feel. Okay, so, yes.
Could I just listen to her all night?
Love you, thank you, Jody. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I want to just say, while we're looking for the next question, that as soon as the program ends, in just a very few minutes, we're going to move this table around here and crank up the big band music again. And we have about 20 books only, I'm afraid, that we can sell, but if you brought your own, Edie will sign those as well. I want to make sure that you're all welcome to do that. So let's see if there's any more questions from the floor.
You know, this is the evening time of my life. And I'm very, very careful how I want to be remembered. And it is just so wonderful. Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what advice would you give to someone that's trapped in the public school system right now?
What's your name?
I'm Griffin.
Griffin.
You can make a difference wherever you are. Wherever you are. The libraries are open as long as you make up your mind that you want to go to Stanford. And if you do, you start studying when you're 12 years old. That's what you do. In my book, you know, I lectured with Philip Zimbardo, who was a professor at Stanford, and we go to a place like Flint, Michigan. It's the poorest city in America, and guiding young people to stay in school and stop bullying. And I think that you can be that person. You can be the wise young man who are saying you have a choice to be miserable, or you look for something that you can guide others. So why don't you go and talk to the little children who would adore you? You do that? Yeah.
Thank you.
And help them with their homework and see how the children would want to become not just boys but men. And I think you would be one of a kind, wonderful giant who can do that. I have faith in you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So don't call me shrink, call me stretch. And I am hopefully stretching your mind tonight that you have choices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Edie, Griffin, that was a great question. One of the things I loved about your book was how the people that you've been giving therapy to and counseling to have been in the craziest situations and felt trapped in so many ways, and you've always discussed how to find choices in the craziest, darkest places. There are these choices that you have found.
There is light. There is light in the darkest places.
Hi,
Yes.
sweetie. I'm coming up here so you can hear me. So I'm going to take you back, because I think all of us are interested in the stories, even though I know they're tough to talk about. So you were 14 when you went to the camp, right?
I was 16 in Auschwitz.
16. So I was just curious. Today, we give our kids support groups, they have guides, they have therapists, books, internet. You were just 16 years old, you had nothing. And we can't even imagine the experience, but I'm just curious, when you were in the camp and you knew you had to survive, what was your support group? How did you even think about, you said you would just try and survive to the next day, but when you came in, you had no survival skills. What was that like, if you could just take this through just a little bit, what was that like, and maybe how that served you to survive?
Well, I had a boyfriend. My mother told me, I'm glad that you have brains because you have no looks. I'm very serious. You know, you give them a name, you play the game. I became a very erudite teenager, you know, just like Anne Frank. And my boyfriend told me that I have beautiful eyes and beautiful hands. And in Auschwitz, I would come to everyone, tell me about my eyes, tell me about my hands. Because if I survive today, then tomorrow I'm going to see my boyfriend, Eric. And when I came home, he was the first person I was looking for, and I was told that he was shot a day before liberation. So in Auschwitz, that's what kept me somehow, that I have to survive so I can show him my eyes and my hands. That's what I remember, that if I survive today, then I'll be free tomorrow. Never once I even imagined, even though I was told every day that the only way I will get out of here as a corpse. They took my blood at least twice a week, and I asked, why do you take my blood? And he said, to aid the German soldiers so we can take over America. I couldn't yank my arm away, right? I couldn't change what was outside of me. And I said to myself, with my blood, you're never going to win the war. What's the matter with you? You know, the humor. See, they beat me and they tortured me and they could throw me in a gas chamber, but they could never, ever murder my spirit. And that's what I bring you here tonight. A kind of a defiance, a kind of a chutzpah that is in there, in my spirit, yes. I'll show you, you know. Whatever you say, you can talk whatever you want, and I'm not going to allow you to get to me. And believe me, you are powerful. You are powerful. You have a power to choose the way you respond to and not react. Because when you react, you don't think. Now Hans Selye, who got the Nobel Prize in stress studies, he says anything stressful that comes to you, you have two automatic responses. You either fight or flee. I couldn't fight in Auschwitz. I would have been shot right away, and many people were. I couldn't flee because if I would have touched the barbed wires, I would have been electrocuted. So I had to learn how to find some kind of comfort in discomfort and recognize the limitations that I'm operating on. And even then, I ate the soup and saved the bread because my sister was heavy and I was skinny and she was more hungry than I. We had choices. When cannibalism broke out, before we were liberated, today I tell people, go see The Sound of Music, because I didn't want to touch human flesh, and I started to choose between one blade of grass over and against the other. And when someone says, I can't, I go to your classroom and I take the apostrophe and I take the T and I say, I can. Why? Because I think I can. Just like the choo-choo train. I think I can, I think I can. I think I can is what you think, that's how you're going to be. All right?
All right.
Okay.
Should we wrap it up?
Shall we wrap it up?
All right.
I certainly wish you well. And thank
Edie
you so much.
has promised that if I help her out, she might do her ballet kick tonight. How many people would like to see that?
I'll do it with you.
If I can't do it.
Well, you can do this.
Right here. Okay. Ta-da, dum, dum, not like, okay.